You are listening to the Knightline Sports Network, brought to you by Travis Dever and the Dever team, 386-690-1636.
Knightline is brought to you by the Dever team, your source for New Smyrna Beach real estate and everything else New Smyrna Beach. Go to www.thedeverteam.com and call UCF alumni Travis Dever for all your New Smyrna Beach needs. 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636.
Welcome to UCF Knightline, your source for UCF sports and former player information.
All right, hello Night Nation. This is Andrew Phegley coming to you from the 1148 studios, and this is Knightline 287. From the award-winning Knightline Sports Network. Joining me as always,
Roger Phipps,
Ben Stout,
and Trey Neal. And on this week's show, the roster roller coaster, season recap, and what to expect in the Big 12, Duke Blues, hoops, where do we go from here, the Tijuana Flats hot take of the week, and news and notes.
Alrighty, it has been a while since we did a show. Before the bowl game, I believe, is the last time that we talked together. So I figured, there was the holidays, there was all kinds of stuff, COVID involved with me. Believe it or not, getting it, a week ago or whatever, we were going to do it, and then we weren't, and so we're back. Lots has happened since the bowl game. Recruiting, basketball, trouble with the law for some people, all kinds of stuff. So we're going to talk about all of that. Any idea, guys? So we've got everybody here. We're all four of us, which is really cool. I'm glad that everybody's here. Ben's here with me, and Roger and Trey are both remote, but we're all here. So that's awesome. Where do we start, guys? There's so much.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, you want to start with the roster, or do you want to do like the season recap or talk the bowl game, or there's so much to choose from?
I know, yeah. Well, let's talk about the coordinator situation, because I think that's a big one. Lost offensive and defensive coordinator right before the National Signing Day-ish thing that's in the early signing day. That's why I call it
really the main signing day now.
Yeah. That was huge, though, to lose two coordinators at that time, and then to really get the class that we did was awesome. So Addison Williams is the defensive coordinator, was here on staff last year, a couple of years now, and then Darren Hinshaw, which a lot of you know his name, was a former UCF quarterback, went on to coach at a lot of other schools, been all over the place, and he is back as the offensive coordinator, and supposedly will be calling plays, which is interesting.
Yeah, it sounds like that is on the docket as part of his hiring. That Gus is at least for now seems to be loosening the reins there on calling the offensive plays, which I think is actually great if he's willing to give that up. I mean, I'm sure that he's going to make sure that it has his stamp on this offense, but. We shall see, because we've seen this throughout college football history, more recent history, where these collegiate, used to be coordinators or even longtime, head coaches who call plays kind of step away from that, and the transition isn't always as smooth as you'd like it to be. So hopefully on this side, the UCF side, it would be smoother than what we've seen in recent history.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely for the long haul of the program, I think that's the right move. Keep it
fresh ideas coming in. I think there's kind of a little staleness to Gus's play calling, so I think there can be he might bring something, a little bit more spice to it. Of course, Gus is gonna, he'll be on the headset being like, I want to run the ball here. You're going to say, yes, sir. And, but just to free up, he can run whatever run play he wants or whatever pass play concepts, all that kind of stuff. He has that kind of freedom. So I think that's good just going forward. Gus can move into that CEO kind of role of a program and kind of just manage, those everyday things that, that also go along with being a head coach. We're going to the Big 12, so we're a Power 5 school. We want to be a national brand like these other guys. So, I think that's a good move.
And he was saying with everything that's going on as far as the transfer portal and everything else that's new, kind of new to college football, that was the position that he felt that he needed to be in the most.
Yes,
was the kind of the general manager type, kind of head coach instead of the, hands-on calling plays head coach. And I don't know. I mean, who knows? There were some weird plays called last year. We know Gus likes to do some funky stuff sometimes, likes the trick plays and certain, and I have no problem with that, but there was some weird plays. So I wonder if, I don't even remember the guy's name that was the coordinator last year.
Wait, no, I was
Chip
about
Lindsey.
to say
Chip Lindsey, yeah.
G.J. Kinney. Year prior.
Yeah. So who knows if Chip Lindsey called some of those plays? I bet they shared it back and forth just personally, because I
think so too.
There was some weird, stuff that didn't quite mesh together, and it almost seems to me like when one person is calling the plays and then another person wants to call a play or calls a play, then it can be a little bit weird like that. So who knows what was going on there? But for some reason, Chip Lindsey, didn't want to be around one way or another. So, Roger, go ahead.
Well, the thing is with this, Gus has actually had precedence with this before when he was at Auburn, and when he was at Auburn, he handed off the reins, and it didn't go so well, and he took them right back over. So I think there's going to be a fair amount of let's wait and see kind of attitude towards this. However, Gus traditionally wants to run 60-40, right? He wants to run 60% of the time and split 40% of the time. And Henshaw has been very vocal about saying we're going to pass the ball more. So we're going to be looking for a 50-50 offense. The one thing that's been pretty consistent about him, because he was a quarterback under Mike Kruzek, and talks a lot about, I want my quarterback to be able to be comfortable enough in the offense to be able to call plays. But through various interviews and commentary about him, the theme has always been he's someone who's going to adjust his system to the folks that they have on the team, right? So if he does that and still wants to keep the 50-50 play call, I think that's a little different attitude than what Gus has kind of shown, right? So the reputation is a little bit stubborn. He wants to play his system. And I think what you're going to see is a little bit more flexibility out of Henshaw. And it'll be interesting how that translates to the quarterback situation. And I think that's one of the big things in his role as coordinator, with, John Rice Plumlee playing baseball. Tommy Castellanos will be there. He burned his red shirt. I'm surprised he stayed, honestly, after he burned his red shirt. And we have Timmy McClain, who, from all intents and purposes, has a great arm and can run. So, and has starting experience. So it'll be interesting to see how that all meshes out, because, JRP, his legs are his strength. And if he's been this out front with saying, hey, we're going to go 50-50, I'm wondering how much of a door that opens for Timmy McClain or Tommy Castellanos.
Yeah, he not only talked about how he wanted to throw the ball more, but he specifically, I think multiple times in his opening press conference, talked about wanting to throw the ball downfield, right? Like try to get the ball downfield more, which we all know. I mean, watching this season wasn't the touch on the ball, especially the deep ball, while he can throw it hard, the touch on the ball and the accuracy downfield is certainly not been displayed as a strength so far with JRP's arm. So it'll be interesting to see, once he gets to know these quarterbacks, really gets in the room and understands what makes them tick and sees them in practice and spring practice, where he goes there, or at least what he recommends to Gus. It'll be interesting to see how much influence Gus allows him to have on that personnel decision of the importance of, who starts at QB1. But it the baseball dynamic of this whole thing in the spring, to me, just makes it so even more interesting than this past preseason. Just the fact that we have, as you just mentioned, we got Timmy McClain, somebody with starter experience. We've got what to us was a big time recruit who came in last season, who's got now some NCAA game experience in Tommy C, and you got the incumbent in JRP. It's just interesting when you add baseball on top of that. What we thought was a big time controversy coming into, or a big time quarterback competition coming into last fall, this spring, and then going into next fall, or I guess this fall, is just if we think it's going to be solidified anytime soon, we're sadly mistaken. It's going to be an interesting ride.
Well, JRP has already talked about spending the spring in baseball and not being in the spring so much in football, and that's crazy, if you ask me. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, there was, like you're saying, it was going into this past fall, we kind of knew what Gus wanted with just him bringing JRP in, saying he's playing quarterback. Gus has always been athletic guy at quarterback, that can throw, but he loves that, that read option running QB dynamic. So we kind of knew where he was leaning, just because that's not really Mikey's, skill set that's not his greatest skill set. Going into the spring now, you have three guys that have shown, you have Timmy, who has shown to be a dual threat. You have Tommy, who is a big time recruit as a dual threat, and you have JRP, who brings that running mobility. So I agree. I think it's actually going to be, a little bit more of a controversial kind of, spring with JRP playing baseball. Now you're going to see the two guys get more of the first team work, two guys get more of the reps in the offense. And the thing with JRP is this was his first full year starting. He's not a 3-year starter at quarterback, to where, in my opinion, you can miss a spring playing baseball and just come back as the incumbent starter. This isn't a Jameis Winston situation where, you win a Heisman and, you go play baseball in the spring and then you come back in the fall. Like, we knew he was going to be the starter. I think it's like you guys are saying, I think it's very interesting. I think that throws a monkey wrench kind of into everything, and even just the coaches, just as the players, the players we see, it's cool. But, if you see, for example, if you see Timmy go out there and make a lot of plays that JRP can make, and then give you something in the pass game, the players and the receivers, they're going to be like, hey, we want him to be our quarterback, and that kind of builds up kind of the issue with, who you want to be the quarterback. I've been a part of that, so, and it does happen. It leaks into the locker room, and you kind of have to figure it out. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, well, it was well known that the players this year wanted Mikey Keene to be the quarterback, and I think that some of this, maybe even some of the transfer portal type things in the end of this came out, with some guys a little bit being upset about that situation as well. So I personally hope that JRP goes and plays baseball and does really, really well, and then just decides he wants to go right to the major leagues or something after baseball season. It would make everything so much easier.
It is.
If he plays the way that he played in the bowl game and a couple of the games before the bowl game, he needs every moment of spring football that he can get.
And not only that, too, it's the baseball season is a grind, man. He plays center field. He doesn't play. He doesn't play, he's not a every 5-day starting pitcher. Well, thank God, because I wouldn't want him throwing a baseball that often when he needs to work on
Has
his
anybody
throwing
seen him
mechanics
throw a
with football.
baseball, by the way? Can he throw a baseball better than he throws a football?
Probably throws a baseball just like he throws a football, really, really hard. Well, you could throw a baseball really, really hard on a roll.
And straight. Yeah, you don't have to have a lot of touch in baseball.
But my whole thing is, I think one of the things that towards the end of this season that we saw with JRP is that he just got worn down. I mean, he got beat up because he was using his legs so much, and that's the most dynamic part of his game. When he's on, he's using his legs, and I just, again, I find it a little bit wild that you're going to go through that grind of the baseball season, and you're not going to essentially
save yourself for football.
Yeah, and on top of that, work on your game in football at 100%. It's an interesting situation, but hey, I wish I was that talented in two sports that I could have that choice. But hey, man, I don't know, man. I think it's going to play into the decision of who is QB1 at the end of the day, because as we just talked about, we got 4 quarterbacks that are all recruited by Gus Malzahn at this point in the room. It's not Mikey Keene as the outlier because he wasn't recruited, he wasn't brought in by Gus. We got 4 in the room that are recruited by Gus. So
right.
I mean, because you had the freshman Dylan Risk,
and it's not like Timmy can't play this year; he's ineligible. We want to save Mikey; he's a freshman. Now you got guys that they've gotten a year of college, or whether it's
you've got
Tommy
3 legit guys that
legitimate.
You have Timmy, who has played college football at this level, and he's performed well in a terrible situation. He played pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I think Timmy could beat them all personally.
I mean, he could.
Again, it's a completely different quarterback room versus a quarterback in Mikey who wasn't recruited. And people try to say, "Oh, Mikey was good." Well, just college football coaches want to play the guys they recruit, because that makes them look good.
Right.
So now you have, like you said, there's 4 guys that Gus has recruited. He's going to like all 4 of those guys equally, and I think, again, like you're saying, I didn't know he played center field. That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of running.
Yeah.
How do you think Gus feels about that whole situation? I mean, I guess he's obviously given him the go-ahead to do it, but in the back of his mind, he has to be thinking the same stuff that we are. Yeah. I mean, otherwise, if we're thinking that and he's not thinking that, that's a problem.
Yeah. I'm sure he is.
And if he is allowing it, to me, then I think either he already knows something we don't, or he's just going to ride with JRP, which that would suck. But because I just, it doesn't make sense with how last season unfolded for him to just, like you said, just be stagnant. Like, he's essentially going to be taking,
the whole spring
3, 4, 5. Yeah, 3, 4, 5 months off. That's time where he could be getting healthy. That's time where he could be, working on mechanics, working on anything. Like, you could go out, and the time you're throwing baseball, you could be out throwing with your receivers every day. Like, those things are those hidden hours that we don't see as fans. That's where the chemistry on Saturdays comes. It doesn't come just from practice. I used to say that all week. Like, you can't fix some of these things with practice during the season because you just don't have time. This is the time you correct that. This is the time you get that chemistry with your guys. All these hours of off season. He's not having an off season. Like, he doesn't have an off season. It's always doing something, which, again, he's uber talented to be able to do it. But as far as the overall, how the program and where we want to move forward, there's choices you got to make, man. And to me, I don't think I would have personally done it with how I just played. I think there's so much more that he has to work on with not just him, but, like, again, getting that chemistry with his receivers and, his tight ends and stuff.
It just opens up that time that he's going to miss is just opening up time for another quarterback to do all those things.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
So,
beyond that, too, quarterbacks also, during this time of the off season is when they work on mechanics. Trey, to your point, when they're at practice, they're doing installs, especially during game weeks. They only get so much time that they get to work with the QBs. So, during the off season is when QBs and our guys, all 3 of them, were working with the same QB coach over last year during this time. And, they coordinate with the head coaches to say, okay, what do these guys need to work on? from a mental perspective, what do they need to be practicing? Because there's mental reps that are involved, formations, recognizing formations, all that fun stuff. That's all done in the off season. So if not only are you getting timing with your receivers, which by the way, we had 2 new receivers in the rotation last year, but you're working on the mechanics, you're working on flicking the wrist, keeping your shoulder square aligned with your hip, making sure you've got plenty of power, or not just power, but touch. What throw should you be throwing on this route? On this check down, where should you go? All that stuff is done for 6 or 8 weeks. And people don't realize it's not just about spending time with the receivers. It's also about upping your game mentally and physically as a quarterback.
And definitely. I mean, I remember in the off season, I think after even with Coach O'Leary, Coach O'Leary's year, I watched, even scout team reps, he would show me Coach Callahan before he ended up going to Florida. He took me that off season, probably the first week after they played, and we watched every single rep that I did on scout team, and he was like, this is bad, this is bad technique, blah, blah, blah. Every rep. And then same thing with Coach Frost. We watched every rep of special teams, every rep of defense, even if it wasn't me, hey, this is what you can fix. This is what we have to do better here. There's so much film that you can watch, and that's just from a DB's perspective. We don't do nowhere near as much mentally as a quarterback, They have so much more with the O-line protections, where defense coverage, it's so much more. And again, like you said, he's missing all of that. I'm not going to say I know what he's doing, but to me, it's going to be hard to be able to focus fully 100% in baseball and be able to give 100%, of an off-season part of football. I think, he can come back in May and June, but now, like we're saying, you have guys that are 5 months, 6 months ahead of you on corrections. Just because Tommy didn't play doesn't mean he doesn't see the corrections. Tommy was in every single meeting you were in this year. I'm sure Timmy was too. Those guys were in the meetings all year. So they can see the corrections, and they have a chance to work and fix those little things that you don't have time to fix during the season. So
and
it'll be interesting.
Like I was trying to say before, if I'm one of those other guys that sees JRP over there playing baseball, I'm going to take advantage of every single second that he's not there to do all the things that he should be doing, in the football building versus on the baseball field.
He's opening the door for his spot to be taken. And of course, nobody's spot's ever guaranteed each year.
Shouldn't be.
Exactly. But he's making that opportunity. The door is wide open for somebody to take it, So it'll be interesting, I think.
I personally hope somebody takes advantage of that.
I think one last thing that we have touched on, but I want to reiterate that makes this so interesting as well is we have heard a lot of rumblings over obviously we heard that at least half the locker room wanted Mikey Keene as quarterback last year, right? Mm-hmm. There's obviously, and then you hear the other side as well. So I want to be fair to JRP that definitely I've heard that. I've also heard the flip side of that he has a lot of teammates that are very passionate about what he brings to the table, and their relationships have been built there. But again, if you go away from that for a full season, I think that's one of the things that everything that you just described, you guys just described, especially you, Trey, about the off season, the preparation you're allowed to do in the off season, the film work and all of that. I think that all went into some of these next year, second year starting, sophomore leaps, whatever you want to call them, that these QBs have made, most notably, obviously, Mackenzie Milton. But I think what also went into that is what we talked about at the beginning of this conversation is that those hidden, throwing sessions that you do with your wide receivers, that you gain so much trust and relationship there, that if you don't have that, at least on a regular basis, I think that you leave your spot open to be taken that much more.
Yeah, definitely.
We need a QB to be a leader of this team. At the end of the day, he's the leader.
Yeah, that goes to, again, what we were saying, that we felt like we lacked in those tough moments. that's what I felt like we lacked, was who was the leader of the team that, that we gravitate to. And again, like you're saying, those hidden out, you think about from the game was the end of December, from January when they get back to school all the way until August, how many hours that they can put in and throwing and just running reps on, even if it's just on air, you get the timing down. Hey, this, and you talk about it. You live in the facilities. You live in the field house. You live on the, in the practice field. Like, that's what they do. I remember every day it felt like McKenzie had those guys, in the locker room, or not in the locker room, on the field running routes. Even if all day they just ran post routes from different formations, different whatever, that's what they worked on, and McKenzie worked on scramble drill, all that stuff. Like, those hidden hours, it's a lot of time that you're missing. And I know people are like, oh, it's just the spring, but that's where, to me, I spent the most time trying to perfect my craft, and those weaknesses that I had, that's the time that I try to sharpen them. Once you get in the season, you're just trying to stay healthy, man. Like, you're trying to stay healthy and know the game plan. You don't really have time to kind of sharpen those weaknesses.
All right. Are you ready for another little wrench being thrown into this whole thing? Our new offensive coordinator, Darren Hinshaw, who was a quarterback at UCF, everybody that's listening to this should know that. Mm-hmm. He was a two-sport player as well.
Oh,
so, does that change things a little bit?
He was a basketball player, which was interesting.
But still a two-sport player, so he's done that two-sport thing. Maybe not at the same exact time, but and Ben might have something to say about this.
No, while I agree with you, I will say, and I hate to say this because I
know what's coming.
I not only played the sport that he played, but I also played in somewhat the era that he played. It was just a different time, man. It was a different time at UCF, I believe, and also I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think Darren Hinshaw played on one season. He played at the basketball team. I think he played on the.
They say 93 through 94 here in his.
Yeah,
official
I think
bio.
that was the magical
NCAA
tournament run where we made it as we won conference as like a. As a not a very highly I should say we didn't have a great record, but we made the
21-9 won the Atlantic Sun tournament.
I was thinking about 98 when we actually had a losing record and still made the NCAA tournament because we went on a run in I think that was 97-98. Anyways,
93-94 was the year
that he played. Yeah, so he played on a great team. And
this bio is weird because it says helping the Knights to the NCAA championship. So really, whoever wrote this should probably into the NCAA tournament championship.
There we go,
but not the NCAA championship.
But one last thing I will say about that, because I'm glad you brought it up, because we were talking about all of the different things that you can do as a quarterback, in football in the offseason, getting ready and all that stuff. Like, I just don't want to overlook the fact that playing baseball is hard. Like, playing quarterback at a Division I, level is insanely hard, but playing baseball just in general is hard. And so, like, to switch, like, the mentality that you have to get into baseball mode, it's not just about the throwing motion being totally different and the plays that you have to make and the movement of your feet in the outfield there, but hitting a baseball at a high level is one of the hardest things to do in sports. And so it's just and I say that only to reiterate that if he is wanting to play baseball at a high level, which we know he does, he wouldn't be playing if he didn't want to. He has to concentrate on that and try to help this UCF baseball team. And I hope he does, but the UCF baseball team to be the best, player he can be. And you can't just walk onto a baseball field and just be like, hey, I'm going to let my athleticism carry. He's not Bo Jackson. He's not Deion Sanders. It's a totally different situation. And so, even Jameis Winston it was crazy that he could do that because he was a pitcher, and that motion as a pitcher is just so different than being a quarterback.
Yeah.
That it's just amazing that he could do that as a pitcher. And obviously, we've got some other examples like Patrick Mahomes, which were outliers. But really, it's just an interesting situation to see that if he can be effective on the baseball field, he's really going to have to concentrate on it.
So looking up Darren Hinshaw's, I believe this is his UCF basketball stats, by the way. He played in 5 games. Scored 0.8 points.
Hey, man, I'm not going to hate on the man. That was about my average.
Free throw 100%, though. So he probably, did 2 or 3 free throws.
There we go.
So, he wasn't, really the greatest. He wasn't an all-time basketball player by any means.
Hey, he was an important player on the end of the bench on a championship team. That sounds like somebody you know, doesn't it?
There you go. It does, absolutely. Yeah, so we can't knock him for that.
There you go.
But, yeah.
And hey, I say all this to say I don't know if he's a starter in baseball. I'm not quite sure. I know that he plays, but I don't know if he's like the main guy that's going to be playing in every game. But he's going to go out there, and in order to be even close to successful, he's got to give it his all, and that's a lot of time being taken away from being QB1 on the UCF football team.
And his hitting wasn't great. You think about it from the flip side, like. These baseball guys were all in fall ball. They've been playing baseball all fall,
and all summer.
It's the exact same thing. Like it's hard, man. It's not easy to do what he's done. Now, if he's starting, then he could be a freak show stud. I don't know, but again, these guys are playing baseball year round. Most of these guys now are playing these sports year round, so that you have that time to get better. I don't know when did he have the time to get better in baseball this fall? I didn't see it because he was playing football this fall, Yeah. So it works both ways, and it almost kind of works against you in both ways in a sense. Dion and, Bo Jackson playing corner and outfield are very similar things. Playing running back and playing the outfield, like while they're different, those are more athleticism-based positions. Playing quarterback is a very cerebral type of position. The motion is very different than throwing. It's tough, man. It's tough.
Yeah, all those mechanic things that Roger talked about earlier. It's the opposite in throwing a baseball. I mean, pushing off your back foot, like having your whole chest and momentum moving forward instead of standing tall the way a QB should be. Throwing, it's just a different motion, and so I just find it interesting. And again, I'll just say it again. That's just talking about throwing one ball versus the other. That's not talking about trying to hit a 90-mile-an-hour slider that some 6'6" guy from ECU is trying to throw at you. It's wild.
So then I'm looking up John Rice Plumlee's baseball stats here.
Oh boy, here we go.
This is interesting. So 2020, played 13 games, batting average .063.
Wow, it's not a very
played
good hitter.
13 games, and then 21 played 47 games.
Okay.
Batted .267.
Yeah, that's a big jump.
Big jump there. Played. It says here that he played right field though.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. He went between right field, center field, and OF. I don't know what OF.
Yeah, just outfield.
Just
outfield.
So he went back and forth. It looks like from position to position. Games played at center field in 21-9, right field 32.
So he's mostly a right fielder, but still,
right fielder. Yeah, 1 home run, 8 RBIs. I don't really know too much about.
How is his stolen bases now that you're looking at it? Because he's fast.
Stolen bases 8.
Wow, that's surprising. I would figure he'd at least have double digits there, but still.
Caught stealing twice.
I guarantee you Lovelady wants to move him around the bases. I guarantee you that.
Yeah.
He has to.
Probably
if he doesn't do anything, he has to pinch run. I don't care what anything.
For
he
sure.
might be one of the fastest people on campus.
No doubt.
Yeah. So okay. Well,
him and Renaya Jones are like
the
two fastest
those guys
people.
are flying.
maybe she'll be playing baseball too. You never know. Anyway, all right. So we got through that.
Yeah.
What about Darren Hinshaw? Is anybody excited about that? Are we? I mean, it wasn't, we thought we had some names for offensive coordinators and all that. Were we like excited about that? I'm okay with it. It wasn't like
I'm okay with it.
It wasn't like a big like wow kind of. It was more of a okay kind of thing. That was what I thought at first. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. He's an alumni. He loves the school. He played here. He was a quarterback. I mean, it's probably his dream job to be at UCF.
That's the reason why I like it. I like it because and again, I'm not going to pretend to say that I watched a second of UAB football, so I don't know his scheme as an offensive coordinator. I'll let someone else talk about that. That's much more versed than I am, but I am certainly excited that he really is happy to be here.
He's a homer,
and yeah, I mean and quite frankly, I mean he was before Dante, right? So I mean, and prior to Dante, I mean he was kind of the guy. I mean he was kind of a UCF legend, I guess, and then obviously Dante followed up right after him. So I mean he kind of erased how good he was. But by the same token, I mean he was a really good quarterback for us, and it's great to see him come back to his alma mater and really achieve that level of coming back to his school and being excited to be here, because quite frankly, all those guys that we were talking about that were in the hopefully in the running to be an offensive coordinator, they would be looking at this as just another place potentially.
Absolutely.
And we know that Darren Hinshaw doesn't look at it that way.
That's true. Yeah, and that's
big in recruiting too.
Yeah.
It is big in recruiting.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
It's huge.
Yeah.
So, a couple things to add to that. For me, I mean, number one, it's kind of like I know he's been trying to get back here for a really long time. I know he's a disciple of Krzyzek, and he's also a disciple of Eddie Gran. So his everything that you've read is he's been really flexible. Something we didn't mention was that he actually was here as a defensive analyst a little over a year ago. So he was with Gus his first year as a defensive analyst, left, and then came back. And what what Henshaw said was that he learned a lot because he'd never seen that side of the ball, so he understands the schemes and what the defense is trying to do to the offense a lot better. For me, when it was announced, it was kind of like okay, let's see what happens kind of thing. I'm happy that he wants to be here. There was a lot of smoke apparently around Scott Frost potentially
that was
wanting to be
never
here.
Legit. It was never legit. I don't care what anybody says. That was never legit. Never.
I don't know. I mean, Trey, do you know anything?
I asked Trey to reach out, and last time
let Trey talk for a second.
My personal opinion, I just didn't see how that would ever be. It didn't make enough sense for it. If he interviewed, it would have been, in my opinion, more of a, let me just chat it up and, kind of get my name buzzing. I haven't talked to him, but it didn't make sense to me. That's just it brings too much. While yes, it would be exciting to kind of relive it. It's just it doesn't make sense for Gus in the sense of, you have a coach who was very successful at the school in your position. Now you have that kind of shadow. You don't want that as anybody's program.
And I don't think
so
Gus
I don't know if it made
would ever
sense.
do anything like that personally.
If I were Gus,
there's no way in hell that I would do it if I was Gus.
Yeah,
Gus
never.
is smarter.
Yeah, exactly. If I was Gus, I'm not doing that. No way.
Yeah.
I mean, you might as well just fire me now and just let him be the head coach again.
I think that was wishful thinking with some UCF sports fans.
Yeah.
I don't think that there was any legitimate anything to that.
Yeah.
Now, if he interviewed, I'm not. I haven't talked to him, so I don't exactly know how all that went down. I mean, I've heard a lot of things about a lot of coaches and everything. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, and so we started this conversation about talking about coordinators. So we just talked about Henshaw a little bit. I'll just kind of loop it back to the defense and just say that I think that losing Travis Williams at the moment we did, I think a lot of us were like wondering what was going to happen. And I think what was going to happen with the recruits coming in. And the recruits that we brought in on National Signing Day, on the early signing period, the first National Signing Day, I think is a testament to the defensive staff that we retained and promoted within. It's definitely a testament to Addison Williams, guys like Kenny Martin as well, who are just great recruiters. And the recruits that we brought in, especially on the defensive side of the ball, some of these flips that we got from schools like Florida State and others, it was an exciting thing to see that while we lost Travis Williams, which we all knew was going to happen eventually, if it wasn't going to happen this year, it was going to happen probably next year. And the worry that at least I had in how that would affect recruiting. And I'm sorry if I just said Addison Williams there when I meant to say Travis Williams. But yeah, losing him we thought was going to have a devastating effect on recruiting, and it really didn't. I mean, the twins from Lake Brantley, that's one, but and there might be one others that my name's escaping, but the reason why the name is escaping my head because I'm thinking about John Walker. I'm thinking about all these guys that we brought in and solidified. Yeah. I mean,
did the twins ever make their announcement, by the way, where they're going?
Did they? I don't know.
No, they're still. The last thing they said after the Under Armour game was that it was UCF and Maryland, and they're choosing between us.
Okay. Well, I mean,
either
way.
That doesn't. I don't know. Wasn't it when they whole decommitted? They were supposed to go to Arkansas, right?
I thought Arkansas all of a sudden became in the mix for them right after T. Will left. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't. To me, that when you don't go immediately, if you're following a coach,
then you don't
should be committed to Arkansas.
Right.
So something to me fell through.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like something fell through. So now they're like, oh, now I need to fall back. Like, and then I thought they were supposed to be announcing at the Under Armour game.
The other thing is, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
I just, it's not fishy, but it's
something's
to me.
weird.
I feel like they're trying to draw out. Maybe they're waiting on an offer. I'm not necessarily sure. I don't know, like because you already committed to UCF, you really had no reason to decommit besides your possible position coach leaving for a better job. Other than that, why did you decommit? You could have decommitted any time. It was just convenient that when T. Will left, now you're decommitting. Like, I don't know.
4 4-star defensive players signed with us on National Signing Day. That is a big deal.
It's a big deal. Yeah.
And
I was saying earlier when Ben and I were just talking here before the show, waiting for everybody to connect and all that stuff, I was like, I'm a little bit disappointed in this class, but I'm not horribly disappointed. The one thing I am disappointed about is I really was hoping that we would break into getting a 5-star player, but I went and looked at other people's classes throughout college football and saw where those 5-star players go. And there's not a lot of 5-star players on most of the Big 12 teams. I think 1 or 2 of them actually have one or two in their recruiting class.
Yeah.
1 or 2 teams.
Well, there's not many 5-star players out there, right?
Period.
I mean, we always look at these schools
and
like
I don't
Alabama.
think the stars matter nearly as much as you think. Every 5-star player that we've ever come in contact with that has been at UCF, whether it's obviously been as a transfer, they haven't amounted to too much, and most of them haven't even ever seen the field.
Yeah, and I'd have to ask Roger this because I bet I don't think we've ever gotten more than 2. I mean, I don't know, maybe even 1. Have we ever gotten more than 1 or 2 4-star athletes in a single recruiting class? I don't think so.
2.
2
is the maximum.
2 is the max,
got.
right? Yeah.
Shoot,
So we've doubled our best year ever on that front, on that particular.
Yeah,
front.
I remember in my recruiting class because I know Kyle Gibson, he was a 4-star. Man, they were throwing I remember everybody talking like that was just the greatest sign in the world, just 1 4-star,
right?
So 4. I mean, it just goes to show you. And I don't get too much into stars,
right? Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you look at just the translation to it as far as winning. There is a little bit of a correlation. Now, do you always have those outliers of the guys who aren't ranked and are studs, or the 2-stars that are studs? Yeah, but for the most part, I mean, you look at most of the recruiting classes, a lot of it aligns with national championships for the most part, and just having successful seasons. So always recruiting talent, you always want to recruit the talent because then you can differentiate. And, okay, this guy, he had all these stars. He wasn't that good. Instead of it being one guy that busts, you have three other guys that maybe be successful. So.
Yeah. I mean, it begs the question too. Yes, we're getting 4 stars in this class, but how many 4 stars do we have on the field, right? So with transfers and everything else, the vast majority of UCF's roster at this point, well, I wouldn't say the vast majority, but probably about 50% is our 4 stars that are on the field that are starters. Look at our wide receiving core.
Yeah.
We just signed Fred Davis, a cornerback from Clemson. He was the number 8 cornerback prospect in the country in his class and number 90 overall in 2020. He didn't really play much his first season. The second season, he got hurt. And now he's here, 6 foot, 200 pounds. And, he's fast and looks really good. So you look around what we've got, and there's, Isaiah Bowser is a perfect example. There's a transition where it's not just transitioning in the, from the freshman incoming class that's coming in, but also who we've got on the field that's playing for us now that's transferring in. And that's another interesting thing, because we bring these guys in, we talk about off season and having folks in the off season. A lot of them come in spring and start playing in spring, but it still takes a while for them to get up to their potential and lock in with the quarterbacks because they're missing all that previous time that they had together that freshmen would normally have, the 1 or 2 years before they really make a difference. So, that begs the question. The transfer, we rely heavily on transfers, and there's some like K-State that have done that for years, but does that work out for the long term in what's the right mix for freshman versus transfer? Because we know that Gus is going to do that.
Yeah, I think you have to be honest about where you are at in your roster, and even when you're signing those kind of like for the example, some of these freshmen, like they know they've seen these kids, they've had them on visits, they visited them, in their hometowns. They know if these guys are year 1 contributors, year 2 contributors. I remember they told me, as great as they thought I was, I remember they came into camp and they're like, all right, you're 160 pounds. You're not playing this year, and I kind of knew that. So you kind of have to just gauge it because while these guys might be great at football, there's, like you said, there's a learning curve to college, whether it just be learning how to be on your own as an adult, academically, being able to show up to class on time, things like that. Like there is that learning curve that comes with it. So I think they have to have an understanding of the timeline of some of the kids. Like, for example, like I think John Walker is going to come in and play. I think there's a physicalness to his game that he has just from watching him.
6'4", 300.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to play. He might not be a starter immediately, but he's going to get some reps. I think he enrolled early, if I'm not mistaken.
He was repping with them during the bowl practices. So he had to have been enrolled or something to do that.
He's got a hell of a guy to learn from in Ricky Barber. That's for darn sure.
Yeah, so I think those are, you get him and you're not going to be thinking, oh, my goodness, like we need a transfer D lineman. Now, if you have a stud come through the cracks, of course you take them. But I don't think they're going to be out searching for it in that sense. I think we got a couple of DBs. We got a couple of DBs from the transfer portal. Yeah, we need a couple of experienced veterans. Are they necessarily going to be better than some of the young guys that we're signing? Maybe not immediately they might, in 1 or 2 years, some of these young guys will be ready to have those big time roles. So I think you have to kind of balance your roster and fully give an honest assessment about where you're at. And I think there's a healthy mix now with the transfer portal. I think it's a healthy mix. I think you run into problems if you're just taking, every guy left and right. So I think it can be a healthy mix of it. But at the end of the day, you have to recruit the talent. I'm always big on having those, that freshman signing class. That's the future. You're only as good as those guys that you get, because they're technically going to be the weakest players on your roster in the sense of, you expect your sophomores to be better than freshmen, juniors to be better than, and so on and so forth. So if your freshmen are really good, and most of the time you're going to have a good roster up top, and most of the time if you're recruiting well.
And it's going to take these guys a couple of years to develop. So some of them, there'll be one or two probably that play. But
and quickly, I think that's another reason. Just as we started out talking about Gus giving up the play calling, I think it's just that it's so hard with college football nowadays with the aspect of not only NIL but the transfer portal especially, where you have to not only recruit players to come to your school, but you have to recruit the players that are at your school continuously. Yep. And I think that with the ability or hopefully the step towards loosening the reins on play calling and allowing Darren Hinshaw to take over that, he can be that kind of CEO, that general manager, as we talked about, where he can spend more time with the players and understanding, not only what the starting running back or the starting linebacker, what makes them tick, but the big time recruit that came in that may be behind a certain player that is a stud here, that just helping that player through this time of waiting for his chance.
Yep, and that's like you're saying, that's a huge role. Like you're saying, not just recruiting guys, but making your guys stay. That's hard, especially now when you can freely transfer and go play, at another school the same next year. It's difficult. So I think it's smart overall for the program. I know it'll be tough, and you might see a little bit of, push and pull amongst each other, I'm sure. But, I think overall, that's a smart move for him to kind of just, like you said, be the CEO, general manager type.
Yeah, that's an important spot this year in, the last few years, and it's going to be more and more. I think you're going to see more and more coaches that have done more, head coaches that have done the play calling and everything else, do the exact same thing that Gus is doing. So let's talk a little bit about that transfer portal, because we were talking about that. We can talk a little bit about our guys that have gone on to bigger and better things, supposedly. Bigger, better.
Or at least they think.
They think grass is greener on the other side. The biggest one, I think, that was the biggest surprise out of the entire thing, Matt Lee, starting center. Very important position. And I would think, this is weird, I would think if he had a good relationship with his quarterback, that probably wouldn't have happened. Just personally. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know anything, but it's a little weird when you have your returning quarterback supposedly starting again, and then your center, whatever. And he goes to Miami. And this guy was a true and true, like as a kid, rooted for UCF, legacy player. And he's transferring to Miami. I don't get it. So there must something.
It's got to be money,
or something else. Money or somebody pissed him
like
off.
You're saying, it's something that we don't know that's going on in house. Maybe he again didn't feel like. I don't know. I like you're saying, a true and true UCF guy, born and raised UCF fan. To me, that doesn't make too much sense unless Miami just offered some. I mean, if they're offering them I don't think they are, but $1 million to play his last year, I mean, okay, that would make sense.
I mean, he's a good player, but I don't think he's $1 million player.
Yeah, but
maybe they needed a center really bad. I don't know.
That's the only way.
Yeah.
Other than
they
that,
did.
I don't get it.
Well,
you said they did offer something outlandish.
Well, no, I was saying that they did need a center really bad. Their starting center was not working out, and their starting and backup centers both transferred. So, from what I understand, he did get a or at least what's rumored is he did get a 6-figure deal for a year. So,
yeah. Here's what I think. Here's what I think happened, and it's just, again, I'm just speculating like we all are, I guess. Or at least I'm going to offer up a scenario that could have happened. I mean, Matt Lee, yes, he grew up a UCF fan. I mean, he's watched this team growing up and seen the evolution, and he certainly is a part of that, of the most recent evolution. and he bleeds black and gold. But I think that with everything going on in college football, not necessarily UCF, just in college football in general, I mean, I believe he graduated. Did we know that for right? He graduated, right? He graduated UCF. I think he did. I think he got his degree. And, you know, he's poured everything into these last 4 years for the UCF program. And I think he just looked around and just said, hey, you know, I just want to maybe try something out for my last year of college football. And you know, then he probably got that extra push with the NIL money that Miami was offering. I just honestly think it might have been just a human nature thing of him just saying, hey, I feel like I've done a lot here at UCF. I love my time here. But I just want to try something out for one last year. I mean, some people go study abroad when they're just a student and, you know, want to try something out for one last year of college experience. I think it potentially could have just been that human nature element of that.
Yeah. I mean, you're 1,000% right. We don't know, you know, because again, I think that was probably the most out of the blue one, just being that. But you're right. He could just be like, you know, I kind of know everything about UCF. I've done it my whole life. Let me try something different. You know, Miami is not far, so it's not like he's going to be far from anybody. But, you know, he could just be like, let me go see what Miami's talking about. It's very possible.
Yeah, and I only say it that way because we all do, right? Whereas fans especially, we just kind of lose that kind of touch with like, hey, these are 22-year-old young men. These are 20-year-old young men. You know, like I just like that the human element of like, hey, I feel like I've kind of not necessarily even like I've done everything that I could do here. It's more of, you know, I feel like I've experienced some great things and I'd like to just see what else is out there.
Yeah, very true.
Well, Trey, you've done this, right? You've done this and yourself, and you did it for educational reasons primarily, and then also because of the you know, the situation of not wanting to learn a new system again. I don't think that's the case here, but, you know, Matt also, you know, may be looking at it from an educational means. They may have a higher education or a master's degree that he wants to attain. And Miami does have a good brand academically in business and a few other, you know, different types of things. So we don't know. And it's kind of funny that, Trey, that you're here speculating with us when a lot of people speculated what you were doing and what your motives were back when you transferred.
Now, though, it's completely different now.
Yeah, like you're saying, it's when I did it, I mean, and it was only, I think 4 or 5 years ago. But that's, I mean, the world has flipped to 180.
It's crazy how different it is.
But I mean, if I don't know Matt, so I can't really speak to it. But again, Miami that's a great med school down here. It has a great business school. You know, I think if those opportunities present itself, you know, you kind of have to do it if you're looking that far. You know, I don't know how far ahead in the future he was, but. And then, it also helps that if they're giving them 6 figures, you know, that's a good little healthy little push.
Nice little push, yeah.
Well, on one website that's pretty good with the NIL evaluations and valuations on people, his value is $136,000. So
yeah, so you're talking about, for 1 year to make that much money, that's a good little push to do the same thing you're doing in Orlando. I don't know what he was making up here.
Ranked number 592, by the way.
Yeah, and that's out of the entire country.
Devontae Brown, 183,000.
Yeah, so I don't. So. Yeah, you don't know the motives of these kids. It's hard without talking to them nowadays. Back then, like when I was doing it, it's a lot more black and white, I guess, than now, you know, because kids' motive. I think the world is a completely different place than, you know, when guys were leaving and transferring back when I was doing it. But I don't know. I think, again, there could be just that human aspect of, I want to try something different. You know, if I'm getting paid, you know, 6 figures to try something different, why not? You know, what's the worst thing that can happen?
If you look at these NIL valuations, it's pretty crazy. Because Arch Manning obviously was the big recruit this year.
Yeah.
So they list his valuation for NIL as $3.7 million. The highest person
crazy,
in any sport, though, right now, the highest person hasn't even committed, I don't think yet. Bronny James.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, and
$7.5 million. So it goes from $3.7 million for Arch Manning, number 2, to $7.5 million.
Yeah. And I mean, you got to think it's 1,000% who they are as, those their parents and uncles and things like that. I mean, wherever Bronny James ends up going, I saw an article. They were saying that he has a 5-star name, but a 4-star talent. Yeah, whereas he's still a good basketball player. Like, we're not going to take anything away from him, but his name brings a lot more than what some coaches might want to deal with. If Bronny's not necessarily the best player on the team, that could be detrimental just with everything that comes with him. Bronny is he's LeBron James' son. Like he's supposed. And I think
talk about expectations.
Jordan with his son. Yeah,
and like just Arch Manning as well. Talk about expectations for him.
Yeah,
there's a lot of guys on this list. I mean, there's other ones. So there's Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah,
I mean, there's other people with names like that, and
I mean, they sell tickets just because their name. Like, I mean, the second that they say Arch Manning's the starting quarterback, that game will be sold out. I'm talking ESPN. Like, it's gonna be covered like it's Jesus is coming back. Like that's the kind of values that they have with those kids. Like, the second that wherever Bronny signs, I bet you they make that schedule. Say he goes to Oregon, they're going to play 90% of their games are going to be on ESPN. Just because he's there. I think that plays a lot into it. With those high name, big name guys, and so again, I think just. Like I said, the NIL world has changed. It's changed everything, Guys, I'm not going to sit here and act like people weren't getting paid before, but now that it's just free agency, essentially, I mean, it's completely turned the dynamic of exactly. Like, it's just, hey, you want to come play here for money?
It's been happening
you say that.
I mean,
you say that 5 years ago, like, hey, you want to come play here for money? I mean, they're throwing so many sanctions on your school, like, it's freaking crazy. We couldn't even take a burger from anybody.
Look at SMU back in the day.
Yeah, like
that's the best example of it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember we had meetings like, hey, if you guys go out to eat and they say it's on you, say no, you can't do it. I used to be like, it didn't make sense that magnitude, but I mean, like, now it's a completely different world. It's crazy.
I mean, shoot, they're trying to get Penny Hardaway like right now for like 3 years ago, like right before NIL got it. I mean, hey, if he gets sanctioned, I'll take it. Anything that knocks down Memphis in basketball, I'll take it. But still, you know what I mean? It's just wild. It's like everything's just the way things are now. It's almost like just stop looking at 3 years ago. Like that's over.
Interestingly enough, when you're starting to, and I didn't even realize that. I mean, obviously NIL is going on in other sports as well as football and basketball.
Of course, yeah.
The one that's I know this is random and this has nothing to do with UCF, but this just kind of blew my mind. So the number 6 person that's making the number 6 most amount of money in all of college sports right now is a female gymnast.
Yeah, Olivia Dunn.
Yes.
Yep. Olivia Dunn. Yep, LSU.
$3 million.
Yep.
And then there's another gymnast, Sanusa Lee, and I don't know where she go. Oh, Auburn, that's making 1.5. She's the next female in the thing, but it just blows my mind. Yeah. They're paying gymnasts now.
Yeah.
And how much money does gymnastics bring a college? University.
For some reason, Andrew, just for some reason, I have seen a lot of ESPN coverage of LSU gymnastics this year. Just I don't know why.
It's shocking, right?
Oh yeah, it's just shocking.
It's so random.
It is random. But she actually had to like put out a statement,
and
there was some, there was some wildness going on at the meets.
All the little boys are following her.
So, not just little boys.
Oh my God.
Right. And then
so it's a little wild. Yeah.
They're actually they've had
up
to up security. She has a personal security person with her at all times.
Yeah.
Now.
So it's a new age, man. It's crazy.
And college, I mean, the schools have to pay for this stuff.
Right.
I guess. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, and what you're describing there is not just transfer portal, but I mean, that's the social media world that we, that's the That's the world we live in nowadays. That it's just it's that
Mikey
that
Williams from Memphis. I guess he's a recruit. Maybe just signed.
He's the same age as Bronny.
$3.6 million for him.
It's
he's
crazy.
Third
he
highest.
plays down in Fort Lauderdale. I think he's a Mikey Williams.
San Diego.
Oh no, I'm thinking of a different kid. Okay, yep, Mikey Williams. Yep. I think he plays on. He either plays on Bronny James's team or he goes.
His travel basketball team.
Yeah, he's on his travel basketball. That team's stacked. Yeah, that team's stacked.
This thing says 90 for Bronny James, 95% for Ohio State, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, his dad's from Cleveland.
Yeah,
dad from Ohio guy. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, they go to the game. I remember, even when I think it was the first game of the year this year when Ohio State played Notre Dame. I mean, everybody was there, and I remember getting on Twitter, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, Bronny James and Bron are here!" Like, do you know what football game you're at? Like, this is Ohio State versus Notre Dame, and this is what you guys are worried about. Like, so it's crazy, man. It's insane.
There's a lot of stuff that's going on that's weird, though. Like and I still think this is weird with Sanders.
Deion Sanders. Yeah, Deion Sanders.
Being a Jackson, I could see Jackson State, but then going to Colorado, and then his kid's going with him, obviously. But his kid is one of his kids, Shadir, I guess. Shooter. I don't know how.
I think it's Shador. Yeah,
I don't know how to say his name. Anyway, he's listed as number 9 at $1.6 million. He wasn't getting that at Jackson State, I don't think. But
no, he's not getting that at Jackson. But I also think that was. Like, he was bringing so much. Like, it's crazy.
And then the other schools, there's other schools now that are trying to jump on that bandwagon. You saw with Ed Reed at Bethune-Cookman.
Mm-hmm.
That I love Ed Reed. I've always loved Ed Reed. Ed Reed was the player that I looked up to.
Yes, me too.
And that whole thing got really weird really quick. I think he was it was like 24 days or something, and then he's not.
He's not the head coach anymore.
He's not the head coach, and probably needs to be a head coach someplace else before trying to go in and completely revamp any school that's been around for as long as Bethune-Cookman.
Yeah.
So anyway, just weird stuff with NIL and this is what has happened to college sports in general.
Yeah.
Ed Reed's mistake is he tried to Deion Sanders without having a contract in place.
Right.
That was
he tried
his
to be
mistake.
Deion Sanders, and he's not Deion Sanders. Yes.
Absolutely.
Just because your name, you're a Hall of Fame NFL player, doesn't mean that you're ready to be a head coach of any
Absolutely
team.
not.
Of any team, maybe even a high school team. It's just a different ball game, we'll say.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I know we got off into a little thing here, but this NIL stuff, it is absolutely 110% out of control.
It's wild, man.
It's out of control.
Yeah.
There's no way.
It's not like we didn't call it. I mean,
I've been saying this from the beginning.
Before.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way that any college sports player, though, should be making $7.5 million.
Absolutely not. Because truthfully, if I'm gonna be honest, I was raised academics. If I'm making $7.5 million as a 18-year-old, I'm not going to care about my schooling. Not to the sense that I should. I mean, that's just the reality.
Why
of it.
would you? The whole point of going to school is to be able to make a lot of money one day doing a job that you.
Yeah, I'm making more money than 1%. Like, I'm a 1%er as an 18-year-old. That's insane.
That's crazy.
You want me to show up to English? No, I'm not going.
And
to
then
English.
you're going to see. I can't even wait to see the next 4 or 5 years going on and see how many of these people have any of that money left.
Yeah.
Unless the school or somebody is really, really, really watching these guys and helping these guys with their money. We've talked about this many times on here.
It was always my worry from the beginning.
It's going to be big problems.
Yeah. I think they should just, if we're going to preach, we care about the student athletes, we care about them, that kind of stuff is life-changing, even not necessarily the for example, the $7.5 million. But if you got a kid that's making $80,000, I didn't make any money in college.
Oh my God! You as an 18-year-old, you handed me $100,000. I'd be like, oh my God.
Yeah, like
so
you're telling me I get a full scholarship. I get all my food paid for it, housing, and then $80,000 on top of that. Like, so I'm telling you, I'm not going to speak for them, but I 99% would bet my money that none of these kids know how to file their taxes.
I'm not sure if I have ever talked about this on the show before, but this is another glimpse into the life of Andrew Phegley. I got a trust fund when I was a kid because my mother died when I was 16 years old. Mm-hmm. And we had a large farm in Kansas, it was making money, kind of. The way that farms make money, it was making money. There's always a lot of debt. Anyway, my sister was 18, I was 16. When I turned 18 years old, I got $500,000 from the sale of the farm, from life insurance policies, from life insurance policies that were on credit cards, which a lot of people don't even know that your credit card might have a life insurance policy. All kinds of little things, a lawsuit, all kinds of stuff. Anyway, my sister and I both got $500,000. I got $500,000 when I turned 18 years old. I have nothing to show from that right now at all, period. It was gone in probably 5 years.
Wow.
Maybe.
Yeah.
What do you do when you're 18 years old? I got that literally deposited in my bank account on my birthday.
Jeez.
Happy 18th birthday.
Happy 18th birthday. Now, what do you do with it? Yeah, and I didn't invest any of it. I didn't listen to anybody because I had all kinds of adults that I knew in my life from even when it happened when I was 16, just starting to tell me, do this, you need to do that, and you need to do this, you need to do that. I didn't listen to any of those people because I knew everything. I was a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old by the time I got it, and I didn't listen to anyone. I was an 18-year-old kid. That's the same thing that's happening to some of these kids, but they're getting a lot more, and
in some cases, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, these guys, getting $7.5 million. Yes, his dad is LeBron James. He'll probably understand a little bit better how to spend his money, maybe.
Yeah, but he's still 18.
Right.
He's going to college for the first time. Like, he's going to have, no matter who your dad is, you're going to go to college and you're going to see the exact same things that I saw in college. You're going to get excited about the exact same things that I got in college. Like, if
anybody knows me, though, I'm horrible 18. With money. Horrible. Yeah, I'm absolutely horrible. I learned nothing.
That's what it is. So. You have $7.5 million. What? You're not gonna go flaunt it? Like, you're 18 years old. You want to freaking pick up girls? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just what it is.
I bought a Corvette. It was the very first thing. I bought a brand new Corvette. What does every 18-year-old kid want? A freaking Corvette. So
yeah, something nice to drive.
Yeah, and every other car. I had 5 cars, I think, at the time, but. It was just stupid. So, and I have learned things, obviously, from that. I've learned how valuable money is. I mean, it's if I had that now, if I would have waited and invested things like everybody told me to, I wouldn't have to do anything. I could have lived off the interest. Mm-hmm. But as an 18-year-old kid, I can testify that you do not learn anything about how to deal with that type of money.
I remember my freshman year, we were at the Bitcoin. It was the St. Petersburg Bowl. It was the Bitcoin Bowl. So in 2014, I remember one of our coaches was just like, hey, like, this Bitcoin is big. Like, at the time, what, probably 20, something cheap compared to now. Like, you should invest in it. They gave us, I think it was probably like $300 for the week, $400. He was like, just invest like $100, $250, $200 because you're not going to spend all that money here. What is me as an 18-year-old? I'm like, I'm not spending $200. I just got $400. Like, what am I spending investing it in?
I'm not investing in it. I can't see it.
But looking back now,
I don't think Bitcoin was worth that much then because I remember specifically something on Twitter or whatever, and I responded to Bitcoin because I was at the bowl. And I responded, and they're like, here, we'll buy you a beer. They sent me like 1 Bitcoin or something that I could buy a beer with,
Yeah,
so it was like $5, $6.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like,
It's worth a lot more now.
Looking now, yeah, if I would have invested the $200, shoot, I'd be. I mean,
that would
who
be
knows?
That would be a hell of an
but
investment.
that's not what you think about as an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
That's not. I'm not worried about investing. All the kids that are 18 investing, they've been investing for already 3-4 years. That's just not what's on your mind as an 18-year-old.
Not at all. Not at all. I didn't know anything about it. I was just like, yeah, whatever. And I talked to people, and I went and met with some guys at Charles Schwab and all these freaking places, and I was just like, wow, what do you know, old man? That's literally what I thought. So it was like, oh boy, I just wanted to buy more guitars,
Exactly.
Cars, guitars, drugs. Bought alcohol for everybody I knew,
where are we going out tonight?
It was a party, and I was dealing with that in college, and I had my own house at the time, I lived off campus, but I owned the house, and
holy smokes,
it was just ridiculous. It was so stupid. I was very popular, but then when that money ran out, not so popular anymore. It was really weird. Hey guys, what are you doing tonight? Oh yeah, there was always some excuse. So,
well, just to quickly bring this back full circle here, when we were describing the $7 million player, or even the $500,000 player, which I say it like that, like it's not as much when you're talking, which is insane to say that. But it's the aspect of that the player is making that much money, but it's like you gotta, as a coach though, that player is coming onto campus and like we said, like Bronny James is going to make $7.5 million some NIL deal because of his last name, but it's also because he's worth every penny for the marketability that he has to that school, right?
Oh yeah.
But the coaches don't give a crap about marketability. Like they're trying to win, in his case, winning basketball games, right? Mm-hmm. And so the aspect of that guy walking onto campus, and because he's there, he's getting $7.5 million, and because of who he is, he's $7.5 million. But you're going to all of a sudden try to fit that guy into your offense when 5 players are on the court at one time for your team, and you got to make sure that he's setting the right screens and coming off of those right way. I mean, it's just a wild dynamic that these coaches have to deal with, which is again, I'm surprised that coaches like Saban and others haven't just thrown their hands up and said, "Forget this." Some
of these players are getting paid more than their coaches. Think about that.
Of course,
exactly.
Think
about that.
That's legitimately that's the NFL. That's professional sports. That's why when you hear some of these coaches talk about in the pros, they're like, I can't tell a $20 million D tackle to stay in his gap. Like he makes more money than everybody. He makes more money than everybody on the field.
It was never like that in college sports, and this is what college sports has become.
It's been flipped on its head.
There are players that I just thought of that. I just thought about that's. I just came to that realization when we're talking about this guy in particular. I'm like, that his coach doesn't make nearly that much.
I'm sure Ben got plenty of McDonald's bags. They just had the 5 for $5 in them.
I didn't even have the 5 for $5.
But
Wendy's. All right, Wendy's bags.
That's actually
just
Burger King.
The article I was reading. They're like, could he be a great Bronny in that sense? Could he be a great player? Absolutely, but it's so much that comes with him, and it's not necessarily baggage, but just as a coach, like, do you want to deal with that, or do you want to deal with the no-name 4-star that you can kind of mold under the darkness of the night, and just kind of build your program. Like, just you have to weigh those things. Did you just say
no-name 4-star?
No, I mean with basketball recruiting, most of the guys don't know the 4-star guys. It's always just the top 20, 30 guys. As far as I know,
that's top 150 recruit. If you're a 4-star, you're probably a top 150. I mean,
but
look
with
at our
basketball,
4-star.
They're not carrying. They're not carrying 80 guys on scholarship. It's 15. So you talk to all those top schools, you got most of them a lot of them go to Kentucky, things like that. So I don't know.
Yeah, man.
Of course, I think a 4-star is a great player, but basketball, a 5-star to a 4-star, you're talking, that's a huge jump, at least when I've seen recruiting.
Yeah, I mean, it's really 10 guys. I mean, really, less than that in some years. I mean, So yeah, it's a select. I always talk about that when it comes to basketball. We talk football so much, but it's like I always just remind people there's 5 guys on the court, and one of them can make a big difference. One of 5, and so
we are going to get to UCF basketball. By
yes.
the way, Ben.
Yes.
We should probably take a break because we're at about an hour and 19 minutes. So we should take a break, and then we can get ourselves focused a little bit. I know it was my fault, but it usually is my fault.
That was a big tangent. I appreciate y'all sticking with us.
It was, but it
was a good one,
it's
though.
interesting stuff.
No doubt.
It's all about how the game of college football and college sports in general has absolutely completely changed. Anyway, we'll get back to some sports, UCF sports, when we get back. We'll be right back after this.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Knightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
An auto accident can change your life forever. At Chad Barr Law, we are raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Hi, I'm Chad Barr, and I want you to know that our entire team is dedicated to providing you with the representation you deserve in your greatest time of need. If you or a loved one have been injured in an auto accident, call 407-599-9036 for a free consultation or visit chadbarlaw.com. At Chad Barr Law, our clients come to us in need and leave as family. Offices, Altamont Springs.
Looking for more out of your Porsche? Look no further than Flat6Motorsports.com. They have the widest selection of aftermarket Porsche parts anywhere in the world. With over 85 product lines and in-depth expertise, Flat6Motorsports.com is your one-stop shop for any Porsche performance needs. Whether you're shopping for intakes, exhausts, suspension, or tuning, they have you covered. Flat6Motorsports.com is the premier Porsche aftermarket specialist. Check them out at Flat6Motorsports.com. All right, we're back again. Good break there needed. So do we want to talk about this bowl game at all? I don't know. Do you guys want to talk about it?
I mean, we can talk about it, I guess.
It's been a while. I don't even think
we lost
that I've seen the whole thing start to finish, to be honest with you, because I was working that day at a new job and I couldn't take that day off. I tried, but I couldn't. So all I know, it was pretty bad, and it was a little bit embarrassing, and it hurt. So that's all I really.
I was there.
Yeah, well, I blame you then if you were there.
You can blame me all you want.
Fault.
We won the last time I was there. Yeah, like it was cold, but it was a good time. I was not sober by the last ticks of the fourth quarter. I will say, having watched it in live and then having watched it after the fact and then looking at the stats, the biggest difference was just, they held the ball for 10 minutes longer than we did. The stats themselves are actually fairly the same. We just didn't put the football in the end zone. So if you look at their stats, it's like 350 yards versus 326, 173 passing, 198 for us. Their QB ran it really well. 177 rushing for them versus 128. They averaged 5.1. We averaged 4.6. 22 first downs versus 21 first downs. 7 for 14 on third down for them. 5 for 14 on third down for us. But we got 2 fourth downs that they didn't get. So they ran. We ran 69 plays versus 71 for them. Both of us had 4 punts. So there wasn't anything egregious. They just out-muscled us, and they got some big chunk plays with their quarterback, with their running quarterback, and they got it in the end zone because of it. So, I remember at the game it felt like, oh, we got a drubbing, but then I watched it back, and I was like, it's just a game of missed opportunities. And we were slow the first half. But, our defense tightened up in the second half, but the first half, their quarterback just ran all over us. So, and they had a good tight end. And that was the difference in the game.
Okay. Well, there you go. That's our game recap for the bowl.
There you go.
Talking about season stats, which I always like to look back at the end of the season. John Rice Plumlee initially gained over 1,000 yards rushing, but then lost 157, so 861 he came up with as the leader. 799 for Isaiah Bowser. R.J. Harvey, 796. So that's interesting. I'm looking forward to R.J. Harvey again, for sure, playing. Isaiah Bowser's obviously done. Johnny Richardson came in at like 370. Ryan O'Keefe ran the ball a lot this year, 222. Castellanos, 120. As far as receiving, Ryan O'Keefe was the headliner there at, let me see. Well, yes and no. Javon Baker actually had more yards, but 725 for O'Keefe. Javon Baker, 796. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
What else? All-purpose yards, obviously. Ryan O'Keefe had 725 yards, 1,373 all-purpose. R.J. Harvey had 1,031 all-purpose. Isaiah Bowser, 1,111 all-purpose. John Rice Plumlee, 877 all-purpose. So, except for his passing stats. We all know that he led that. 2,586 yards, 14 touchdowns. Mikey Keene came in with 647 yards in the 4 games that he played, 6 touchdowns. So 63.0% for Plumlee passing, and Mikey Keene 72.3 passing. Thomas Castellanos 56.3 passing, 75 yards. So Isaiah Bowser, his passing was 100%, though.
He's the Quadri Jones of running backs.
Yeah. So,
R.J. Harvey, too, 2 for 2 as well.
Yeah.
Former
RJ
high
Harvey
school
as well.
quarterback.
Yep. R.J. Harvey had more yards passing than Bowser did. Bowser only had 4 yards and a touchdown with passing, longest play being 4 yards. And then Harvey had 65 yards, 1 touchdown, and 49
he had the
longest.
The bowl game, I think that was the 49-yarder. He had that long pass in the bowl game.
Like I said, I didn't
trick play. He was 1 for 1 in the bowl game.
Oh,
and a trick play.
Good.
He had a better QB rating than JRP for sure.
That's funny. Yep. All right. Defensive stats. Where's that stuff at?
Real quick before you go to that,
go ahead.
I just want to say, I think it'll be interesting to look at whoever's QB1 next season is the comparison of the stats. Now, and I understand that JRP kind of missed time in a number of games because of injury, but the 2,500 yards passing, somewhere around 1,000 yards rushing. Honestly, before the season, that was about where we thought it would be. It was just I think it was more of the ball security and the accuracy that we were a little bit concerned with, especially on the plays when we needed them the most. So whoever is QB1 next year, it'll be interesting to look back at the stats and see how in this offense, in the Darren Hinshaw / Gus Malzahn offense of next season, how that kind of comes to pass from a stat perspective.
Yeah, and I remember saying in the very beginning, it was one of my hot takes that I thought that we would have 2 1,000-yard rushers.
Yeah, and it just really
we were
was
real
spread
close.
out. Yeah,
real close though.
Yeah.
Just with running backs, had 2 guys in the 790s. So I was off by a couple hundred yards each, but those 2 guys did run for a lot of yards. And if we didn't have a quarterback that ran for 861 yards, one of those guys, if not both of those guys, would have been 1,000-yard rushers.
Definitely,
personally.
And the running back room, I think, going into next season is an interesting.
Still stacked and even more
it's
stacked.
not only stacked, but it's just you would assume right now that R.J. Harvey is the man, but does Jordan McDonald take a big step in the offseason? Like, who's going to be that number one, number two guy is an interesting conversation. And then you got guys like Johnny Richardson that just provide an extra wrinkle. So running back room is going to be another great, preseason conversation and even spring ball.
Definitely.
Absolutely. All right. So what else let's talk about. You want to go to basketball now and talk a little bit about what's going on with that? I don't want to talk any more about the bowl game. I'm done with football for this year. Pro football is almost over. Roger and I both have our teams still in there, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah,
though.
Yeah,
that's it. That's all.
That's
we're
the
talking
rematch
about.
from last year. Yeah. We're not going to talk about that until one of your teams wins the game, and then one of you is going to really want to talk about it. One of you isn't.
Exactly. That's all. I don't want to talk about it though. I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to. It is what it is.
One question: is Mahomes going to be back for this game or no?
Absolutely.
What do you think?
Yeah, he is.
Are you crazy?
Did you see how mad he was?
The only way he wouldn't be back is if they had to amputate his leg.
Yeah.
Of course he'll be playing. He played really fairly decent in the second half after he got a shot. It was all good. He just needs a couple shots. It'll be fine. He won't be able to feel his foot, but it'll be fine.
Man, you don't. Do you even really need to feel your feet? I mean,
I don't think so. One of them, you only need to feel one.
Exactly.
It's all good.
That's going to be man. These are the two best games. These are the two games that I wanted right here. These are them.
And
the Eagles versus Niners.
No offense to Andrew, and this has nothing to do with KC, but
here we go.
I'd really love another Cincinnati-San Francisco Super Bowl so that we can finally put that one to bed so we can beat San Francisco for the Super Bowl.
I would love a Kansas City Chiefs-Eagles Super Bowl so Andy Reid can get his revenge for the Eagles.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So there's all kinds of storylines and all this. You saw what this last week what the teacher did to his student with Doug Peterson and Andy Reid in that game. I will say I was rooting for the Bengals for this last game because of this weird situation with the AFC Championship game being played in a neutral field, which is absolutely crazy. Kansas City was the rightful owner of the AFC Championship game. So because game was not played, that is the reason. I'm not saying record-wise, blah, 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 but because that game between Buffalo and Cincinnati was not played, it made those records with one less win. So anyway,
and I'm glad it happened this way because I think that could have been a terrible rabbit hole we could have went down.
Unprecedented, and it would have set a precedence, and that's not good.
Think secretly, I think the NFL wanted it because they could start kind of controlling, like, hey, instead of playing in Kansas City in the home field, how about we just go to a dome and play at a neutral
games
site? Exactly. That's exactly.
Absolutely not.
I'm glad.
Yeah, me too.
I'm glad.
Me too. Okay, so basketball, Ben.
Well, we're 13-6. We haven't done a show in a while. If we had done a show last Monday, you'd probably have a different feeling about it, especially coming off it wasn't this past week, but the week before, that double overtime win at home against Memphis. And now that game was a spectacular one because what you saw in that game was what we've been looking for the last few seasons from Johnny Dawkins' teams, in the sense that this team this year shows a ton of fight and a ton of heart in any situation. They really do fight hard. I think what's happened, what was on display in that Memphis game was that never give up attitude, and then just some spectacular playmaking in that game in particular from Ithiel Horton and a few others. But what has happened, I think, over the last week and a half is I think that our injuries are starting to catch up to us a bit. Losing somebody like Darius Johnson while we were able to beat Memphis in double overtime in that emotional game. When you turn around, you have to go on the road against a very tough Tulane team. I think we were gassed from the beginning of that game. I think that we were kind of out of it from the beginning, didn't have our legs underneath us, and they took advantage of it with some really good shot making. Our
3-point shooting was atrocious because of that.
It was kind of the opposite of what we had saw in the games prior. And we kind of had a lot of things in front of us. Even after we lost to Tulane, we didn't move down much in the net rankings. We were still in that kind of 30-40 range, which is about where it's certainly not a ceiling for UCF, but you feel comfortable if you're in the mid-30s of the net, towards the end of the season, because, you're in that kind of bubble territory and you can make some moves. The good news, and then we unfortunately this past Saturday at noon, we went on the road to a rival in USF, and nothing really seemed to be working for us. We weren't able to execute and make shots really. Even if we did execute and made some open or took some open shots, some good shots. A lot of them weren't falling, and they were making, they were just kind of making everything, just making the tough plays, and they were on fire. And it was just, I think the last couple of games have been those injuries showing through. That's what we're dealing with right now. But the good news is we do still play in a pretty good conference, at least at the top. A conference that does have a good amount of respect and a good amount of teams. And so we've got some quad 1 and quad 2 wins ahead of us, still opportunities to build our resume towards March. And there is no bigger opportunity this entire season than what's coming up on Wednesday night at home.
Whoa!
Yeah, it is going to be a giant game. The unfortunate thing is we're not going to be any healthier than we have been over the last 2 games, and Houston is absolutely getting healthy for the first time. Marcus Sasser is probably the healthiest he's been all season, and he's easily top 3 player, and they've got 2 of the top 3 players in the conference on that Houston squad amongst others. So it's not going to be easy by any means, but this team shows up at home. The fans show up. There's no excuse on a Wednesday night that this student section and the fans itself, that arena should be packed and rocking and ready to go. And so it's an exciting time and it's an exciting opportunity, but Houston is Houston, and it's not going to be easy, that's for sure.
You're pretty familiar with the roster, right?
I am.
What is this number 10? How do you say his name?
Is it Lahat Shun? Is that number 10?
I don't know, man. I don't even know.
I don't have the roster in front of me.
I just was what now?
There's Tiermo Silla and Lahat Chun are the 2 difficult ones.
No, number 10 is pretty difficult if you.
All right, hang on.
You've never seen this.
Hold on, let me look at the roster real quick just to make sure I'm remembering.
Maybe this is wrong on the roster thing, but man.
Pupa Warak. Cold.
I was just wanting you to attempt it, Ben.
So that's right. Yeah. So Pupa is actually he is a former manager, former walk-on, and so he's actually gotten in garbage time and jacked up some threes. But yeah, you're just basically going with P or Pupa on that one. But yeah,
he goes by Pooh Bear is what everybody calls him.
Pooh Bear, really? Okay.
He's one of those guys that's a manager. The team loves him. The crowd
they
loves
throw
him.
He comes in every once in a while.
And he's jacked up a couple threes in garbage time.
He's got 6 points. He's been in 4 games so far. Yeah. So I just was looking through. I was just looking at stats. Yeah, it's hilarious. But I mean, it's not funny that's his name, but that's his name. So
yeah, it's a difficult name.
Not making fun of it, but we're making fun of the difficultness of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, Anyway, Taylor Hendricks, what a player this kid is. And, we've talked about this at length before, that he's the highest recruited player that we've ever had.
That's right.
Kind of worried still. Are you still worried he's a one and done type guy?
I think that that you make that statement in February, March, and April. So I mean hopefully
he's
April,
there,
but yeah, I mean I think you make that statement in the games upcoming. So
271 points so far. The thing that blows me away is the minutes that he has played compared to everyone else. He is at 647 minutes so far. The next guy closest, which is Horton, and he's 578 minutes.
Yeah.
So Hendricks is in there any second that he possibly can be, I think.
Which is interesting because and I think that actually speaks to not only his talent and the type of person he is, but honestly, I think it speaks to our lack of size without Michael Durr in the lineup. I mean, we've got Silla and Lahatchun, and those guys are certainly have some size on them, but they're just not the type of players, especially on the offensive end, that you're going to depend on when Michael Durr's out. And so we've had to rely on Hendricks' defensive ability, especially, and it's just. He's just got a nose for the basketball on both ends of the floor. It's really interesting.
If you look at the rebound stats for him, this is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
133 compared to CJ Kelly having 77.
Yeah.
That's how much of a difference there are between those two guys rebounding.
Right. I mean, he leads our team in points and rebounds. And what's interesting about the points especially. So right now, he started out the season first 10 games or so, maybe even beyond that. He was averaging about 16 points. It's down to 14.3 points per game right now because he's had a couple of down games by his standards. But even his down games when it comes to points, he does so much more. I believe he's top 3 in the conference in blocks per game or blocks overall. One of the two. As a freshman, he's set the record now for the American Conference of the most conference player of the week,
like 6 or
awards.
something. Right now?
Yeah. They may as well just give him the conference freshman of the. I said player, I meant freshman of the or newcomer, whatever they call that award now. But they may as well give him that for the year now. But one last thing I'll say about him, beyond his talent that shines through all the time. What's interesting about this offense is that we really don't run any offensive sets for him. I think that's a little bit of a miss on Johnny Dawkins' part. I'm not quite sure why we haven't done that on a consistent basis. But I'd like to see us, getting him the ball in more space coming off screens, especially curl screens, using that athleticism, because most of his points have come off of hustle plays or, I don't want to really say one-on-one opportunities, but it's just been opportunities where he's made a great basketball play, a great cut at the right time, and his teammates found him. But it didn't seem to be like a call that was a play that was called for him to get him the ball in the right spot to go with it. He's actually a better than I expected three-point shooter. He's still at 38.7% for the season. That is unreal for a player of his size and his ability. So he's just the real deal. I mean, he's the highest rated recruit to ever come to UCF as a freshman. And what I'm excited to see is not only is he living up to that billing with his basketball ability, but it seems like he is he kind of doesn't carry that in an arrogant way at all. Like he kind of is a humble guy when it comes to that, which is, I think, just a kind of a good example for the way this team has been constructed this year. It seems like everybody just kind of is settling into their role of what it needs to be, and if we can get healthy, especially getting Michael Durr back and getting, of course, Darius Johnson back, I think we got a real chance to make a run towards the end of the season.
Any chance of Walker coming back this season, or
no,
is he done?
He has been announced that he is going to be out for the rest of this season, and so unfortunately, the next time we will be able to see him in a Knights uniform, and I hope it is in a Knights uniform, it will be next season. And so hopefully he's able to recover. I believe it was lower leg injury is what they continue to call it.
Wouldn't you think a guy like Hendricks would want to stick around and play in the Big 12 next year?
I do. And what we were talking about earlier, I don't want to go on that tangent any longer, but there's a good chance, he'll see some NIL dollar increases, moving forward to next season. And I hope that, I hope that he's able to stay, or I hope that he does stay, I should say. And when it comes to one and dones in basketball in general, I don't care if they play for UCF or Kansas or wherever. My rule of thumb, if I was in that position, I wish to God I was in that position at one point in my life, but I wasn't. Is if you're not rated for the first round, you shouldn't even think about leaving. It's not like football where you go in the first 4 rounds of the draft, you've got a real chance, right? In basketball, it is a very rare situation to see somebody who is in the league longer than 3 or 4 years if they are drafted in the second round. And so I hope that I hope that he elevates to be a lottery pick, because that means that he's playing unreal for UCF. But if that isn't the case, if he's a low first round or second round projection, and he gets that grade, then I hope that he'll make the decision to stick around. But I certainly wouldn't blame him if he didn't.
As far as records and stuff, first season, do you know at all where he stands in the freshman record book? He has to be towards the top on a lot.
Yeah, I'd have to look back at guys like Keith Clanton and some others that were really good as freshmen. I'm not 100% sure on that, but he's got to be up there as a pretty dynamic player. Even BJ, I think, had a decent freshman year, but I don't know if he certainly wasn't scoring 14, 15 points a game.
Yeah.
So
interesting. I'd have to dig into some stuff to see all that stuff. But.
Yeah, and I just kind of went off there on the basketball team, and I know that you guys watch them as well. It's certainly Roger. Any comments that I'd love to hear from you on this, your take on this team. We got a huge game coming up Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm with you on the injuries. We are our low post presence and our center presence is, without Michael Dorr in there, is really, 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 really denigrated.
Yeah.
And the last 2 games without Dorr, we've gotten a lot of fouls. And part of that is Lahat Chun just doesn't have the body mass that he needs to move people out of, the post. And then you've got, all he really has is a hook shot. And he just doesn't have the athleticism either. And then you've got Tierno Sila, who was a highly recruited Canadian. Actually, he came from Canada. He was originally from Africa, went to Canada, played in Canada, and then came here. And he's actually playing, in my opinion, better. But he's a freshman.
Yeah, he's so young. He shows that inexperience often. And he shows these flashes of how good he's going to be one day. It's just not. It just shows enough of that freshman kind of deer in the headlights as well.
Exactly. And then the one thing that I will say about this team is that several players can go off. CJ Kelly's had several good games. All the different guards. We've been able to go small ball, actually quite a bit, which we've been successful with small ball, but our advantage has been rebounds, offensive rebounds, early on in the season. And that's kind of gone away with the loss of Dorr. And then with, Hendricks having to come to play inside. He's been playing the 5 or the center position the last game.
Yeah.
And you really saw a difference there. So I think we've lost a lot through the injuries. DJ, obviously, at times I've seen him this season, his fierceness and competitiveness have actually got him in trouble a few times. But generally speaking, that's the floor general you want. His tenacity, he sets the tone for the rest of the offense. He reads it well. And, he's really, really good at getting in the paint when we need to slow games down. And we don't have anybody that can really drive with authority consistently. And then, I can't remember his name right now. Taim Freeman.
Yeah.
He's come on, but people don't realize the reason he was out early on. He was projected to be a starter. He was also injured, so he is just now coming into his own.
Yeah, he had
so
22
that was a big
at
loss.
Tulane. He was like the one bright spot. He had to start that game because of the injuries, and he had 22 coming in as a starter. 32 minutes be far and away the most minutes he's played all season, and he had 22. So he was kind of like our only player in that game that was actually shooting at a decent clip. I mean, he was 9 for 14, and as a team we shot 37% from the field from that game. So I mean, he just was the only guy that actually was doing anything on offense that game. And you can't. And I love Taim Freeman. I love everything that he brings to the court, but he can't be our only offensive guy there. We got to have more.
No, absolutely not. And he was coming off the bench all season long,
yeah.
Right? So it's just been the last 2 or 3 games that he's been playing more minutes. He's been averaging somewhere around 8 to 11 minutes per game as a bench player. So, in the past, we had the starters who were doing really, really well. We could bring some bench guys in, and they could play well enough to either keep a lead or, not let other teams come back. And the other thing is just defensively, right? So with the injuries that we have, folks are out. It messes up our defensive sets, and our strengths are different. And with Dura out, that really hurts us as well, because he would plug up the hole, and people just couldn't get in there. He was blocking, he was getting rebounds, he was good at boxing out. He'd set up screens better. I mean, you look at the screens that some of our guys are setting up, and they're just not there. So again, injuries has a big part to do with this. With this last Cal game, I mean, it was just their night. They had stuff bouncing off the back of the rim and up in the air and going in. I mean, this is a team that shot 35% from free throw all season long, and then they get there and they shoot 90.5%. So it was just their night. I'm sure it'll be different when they come home. But overall, I am concerned over the next 4 or 5 games, because Dura was out, I think it was 4 to 8 weeks, because he had surgery.
Yeah,
and
it seems
we've
like
got
he's
Temple,
not going to be back
who just
for a
beat
while.
Houston.
Yeah, Temple's
so
no
we
joke.
had Houston, then Temple, who just beat Houston. You've got Cincinnati. So the next 4 or 5 games, I feel like this team is going to be one of those teams that, because of the injuries, are going to have to win the conference championship to get into the tournament. They're 56 net right now. After dropping the game to the Cows, yes, they have opportunities, but I don't think our guys will be back in time. DJ will be, but Dura is a big piece of that on our defensive sets, our screens, and how we run our offense, because we relied a lot on offensive boards, and we just don't have the weapons that we enjoyed before, and can't get the fresh legs off of the bench that we had before as well. So again, you talked about earlier about how one person can make a big difference. We've got 3 people that are sitting on the bench with injuries right now, and that can absolutely decimate a team.
Yeah, I mean, it's the relentlessness that a team like Houston plays with, that they just keep coming at you, right? And when you have that, even with the talent that we have, and when we're healthy, the depth that we have, but when that depth is cut into, it's going to be really tough. I mean, we talk a lot about the net rankings, and the net is really just a resume. It's a way to build resumes, and you got these different quads and all that. I mean, Houston's number 1 in the net. They're number 3 in the country in the AP poll, but they're number 1 in the net rankings, and so there is no bigger opportunity moving forward. And like you said, we've got Temple, we've got Cincinnati. The good news is these are, we get wins here in this stretch. I mean, then you're able to kind of start to climb up into that 30 range, which is what we really want to look at for an at-large. But obviously they are tough games to win. So, you start ringing up those losses, and it doesn't look good in a hurry. So I hope that going into March, going into the conference tournament, we don't have to rely on winning it. But with some of these injuries, it's going to be a difficult road, and I just hope that we can show that type of fire. And we're going to need a big game from not only Taylor Hendricks, but we're going to need one other player on Wednesday night to have a really big game. I'm looking at guys like Ithiel Horton is going to have to catch fire from three. Same with CJ Kelly. I mean, we're going to need at least one other guy to kind of bring that fire. And we have to. And Taylor Hendricks, actually, I'm less looking for him to score, upwards of 20 points or anything like that. We need a lot of help on the offensive glass from him and CJ Kelly in particular, because that's where Houston is their bread and butter. They're a great rebounding team overall, and they're gonna bring it for 40 minutes. So hopefully we can make a game of it, because it should be a packed house.
And that's going to hurt our transition game too if he's having to play inside like that.
Yeah, because we want to get him out running, but we'll see. I mean, if we can have some things like, so in the right situations, those trailing threes for Ithiel Horton, things like that. Jalen Young really pushing the pace. If we can have that and not fall into their hands, we could certainly make it interesting with the way that this team can play and is capable of. But I'm worried about the depth at this point.
Trey, are you still awake? Are you still connected? Are you still here? Hello, Trey.
Maybe we may have lost him.
He may have hung up.
Sorry, as we started taking
He's
over.
He's drooling on his iPhone as we
speak. I know, yeah. Do we try to wake him up somehow? I don't know. He may not be here anymore. Trey, you still here? Hello, Trey. Yeah, he must have.
I think he dropped out.
Maybe he disconnected. Oh wait, somebody. Oh, he can hear us, but try to reconnect again, there, buddy. That was weird.
He got too much of that slobber in his speaper. That's what it was. In his microphone.
Can't speak.
That's what it is.
Yeah, there must be some drool in his microphone. He says he's texted me. I can hear you guys, but I can't speak.
He's laughing at what we're saying right now.
Okay, so we'll wait for him, and then we need to get with this whole Tijuana Flats Hot Take of the Week type thing going on here. Let's do a little bit of a break here while we're trying to get Trey back, and then we'll finish this whole deal up. Alrighty, back right after this. If you haven't figured it out yet, I love Tijuana Flats. I would love them even if they weren't a partner with us on the Knightline Sports Network. They have all kinds of great Tex-Mex food, and it's fresh, by the way. Made to order burritos, tacos, enchiladas, chimichangas, quesadillas, bowls, nachos, and taco salads. And if you haven't tried the queso, you are completely missing out. It is the best queso that I've ever had in my life. Absolutely hands down. And the sauce bar that they have, everything from wild to mild in there. Absolutely awesome stuff. Not only do I love the food at Tijuana Flats, but I love the company, a UCF-born company. And they give back to the community with the Justin Queso Foundation. So head to your local Tijuana Flats. Tex-Mex for everyone. Hey Jeep Wrangler owners, have you ever sat in your office at work and watched the rain just pour into your Jeep because the weatherman said that there was a 0 chance of rain? Or you put your doors back on because there was a 100% chance and then not a drop of rain fell? Well, there's a company out there that can help take the worry away and give you the peace of mind to be without your doors. The company's called Life Without Doors. They make waterproof rain curtains and dash covers for Wranglers. Life Without Doors is there to help make the decision to leave the doors at home an easy one. Find out more at lifewithoutdoors.com.
Spice up your company with homemade marketing services from Tasty Gravy Creative. Tasty Gravy serves up a menu of budget-friendly marketing, graphic design, and public relations services customized to your specific goals. Co-owned by a UCF graduate, Tasty Gravy can help refresh your brand, strengthen your online presence, or reinforce your company's message. Contact Tasty Gravy for help with your website, social media, marketing, advertising materials, and more. Visit tastygravy.com.
Welcome to the Tijuana Flats Hot Take of the Week. Visit TijuanaFlats.com for takeout or delivery, or visit your local Tijuana Flats. Tex-Mex for everyone. All right, Tijuana Flats Hot Take of the Week is back. Went to Tijuana Flats the other night. It was absolutely awesome, as always. We're not doing score predictions because we really just did those for football. You could do one for basketball if you wanted to in your hot take. I'm not going to. But Roger, how did this whole thing end up? Because we were going through the bowl to finish this whole thing out.
Yeah, obviously we were all off on our score predictions by quite a bit. But for that week, Andrew, you were off 31 points. I was off 34. Ben was off 22, and Trey was off 28. So if you've been keeping track at home, Andrew did have the highest divergence for the season at 63 points. I don't remember what game that was, but for the season, it was really, really close. Remember last time we got together and talked for the regular season, I had won that with 216, but we were including the bowl game. So, AP, you finished up not having to worry about steak at all. You don't even have to buy the steak sauce. You are at 329 points for the season.
Perfect.
I'm followed that with a 250 point performance. It really came down to this last game. And for the gentleman who is purchasing the steak, we actually have a tie. Ben and Trey will be splitting the cost of the steak. I did not.
Unbelievable.
You got to be kidding.
I did not do that on purpose.
This is rigged, Trey.
That is unbelievable. Both of you have to buy. So you guys at least
recount.
Y'all at least
so
can
I don't know if we're getting two
the,
steak dinners or if they're splitting the bill. I don't know what we're doing here.
Splitting the bill. I'll go with that. Wow.
But they both came in with 200 and. Oh, go ahead.
Both got off there, though, because you get to split the bill instead of one person having to handle the whole thing. Yeah, that's good.
So I got really lucky because they both tied with 249 points for the season. So because I was off the most in this last game at 34 points, I did not have to buy a steak dinner. So I'm very happy about that. Congratulations to both of you, not only on your win, but also on our win, AP. With free steak dinners.
250 is what Roger had, and we were
both
Trey
249.
I
don't know.
I demand a recount. That's too good for Roger.
Yeah, I don't know. So it was fun anyway.
Yeah,
we'll work out the details of the steak dinner as we
exactly.
I'll probably actually just have y'all over here for steaks or something if you want.
I'll take that.
Hey, yeah. and that's nothing to sneeze at. I can attest that Andrew knows his steak.
Yeah, I know how to do steaks.
Oh yeah.
So okay, so let's do some kind of a hot take. All of us. I'm still thinking about mine. I'm sure that
I'm still thinking about mine too. But
right.
Let's go.
Let's go with Roger first. Then, Roger, what is your Tijuana Flats hot take of the week for this week?
Okay, for me for this week, my Tijuana Flats hot take for the week is going to go along with what I was saying about basketball. I'm going to say that the Knights will get healthy and squeak into the championship game for the AAC tournament with a bid on the line.
Ooh, that's interesting. Trey, you got a hot take of some kind?
I think
it can be football because I'm going to go football.
Okay. I think, just from projecting, I think that Timmy McClain is going to be our starting quarterback next fall.
I like it.
That's my guess.
That's
And
a good
I
one.
also think that somebody's going to leave that quarterback room also. Out of the four, I think somebody has to leave.
Yeah.
Don't know if it's a hot take, but I think it'll happen before summer. So after spring ball, I think they'll kind of know where they're leaning. With JRP getting back into the fold, then I think somebody's going to be out of that room.
Okay. All right. That's good. I mean, I'm all about the Timmy McClain thing. So, all right, Ben.
He's on the McClain train.
All right. I don't know how much of a hot take this is, but I'll just say the next 4 games that UCF basketball has. So obviously we're playing top 5 team in Houston Wednesday. Then we got Temple on Saturday at home, at Cincinnati, and then at Wichita State. I'm going to say we're going to go 3-1 on that stretch.
All right.
That's a hot
not
take.
an easy. That is a hot take for sure. But yeah, I'm going to say we're going to go 3-1 on that stretch, which means that if we drop this Wednesday, which is likely, then we're gonna go 3-0.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. Okay, so mine's going to be a football thing, and I know we're all looking forward to Big 12, and we're all kind of wondering how are we going to stack up in the Big 12.
Ooh.
I'm going to go with a hot take of just right now the way that I think about how we're going to finish in the Big 12.
Right away, before the schedule, whatever the
before
schedule
the schedule even comes
The hot
out.
take could be the schedule's going to actually be announced at some point.
It could be. I think that we're going to wind up 4th. Our first year, 4th in the Big 12. I'm just going to mark this date, 1/23/23.
Who do you think finishes in front of us?
The 3 better teams. I think TCU is going to be up there because I think that they've got a program built. I think that they have got something going. I actually think that Kansas State is going to be up there as well. Unfortunately, I'm not.
The listeners know that is a.
It's hard for me to say.
Hard for Andrew to say there. Yeah.
Although, like I've always said, Missouri was our biggest rival, and that was when I was playing. That was still our rival. So Kansas State was kind of secondary.
Yeah.
You know, so. I don't hate them as nearly as much as I could, and as some other Kansas fans and alumni do.
Try harder, Andrew. Try harder.
Probably Texas up there too. I'm thinking. But 4th, I don't think that would be bad for the first year in the Big 12.
I just got to make a PSA to UCF fans in general. If we finish 4th you guys better not be upset about that because that would be amazing. If we first year in the Big 12, we finished in the top 4 would be incredible.
Right. Yeah. This is a giant leap. And I don't care what anybody says.
If we finish top 4 in the Big 12, we ain't going to the Boca Bowl. So let's put it that way.
Exactly.
I mean, we're going to a pretty dang good bowl game.
Right. Yeah. So I would be more than happy with 4th. Yeah. I would be more than. I mean, is there how many teams technically is there? There would be.
It'd be 14. 14. Texas and OU are still in it.
So even if we finished in the top half of that, I'd be happy.
Oh yeah,
but 4th, I'm just going to go with 4th.
Right.
Okay,
that's a hot take.
A little bit of housekeeping here, real quick, before we go to news and notes. So I said at the beginning of the year of doing the podcast that I was done after football season. Obviously, I'm still here. So we're just going to play this by ear. We're going to do shows every once in a while, and we'll see where that leads. I'm not saying I'm done completely. I'm not saying that I'm not. But there could be more shows, and there probably will. I'm still having a little bit of fun with these guys. So
just a little bit.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
It's better than not having fun at all.
Yes.
So we'll see. We're just going to play. I'm going to play that by ear, and we'll, keep her going. And obviously, Jeff Allen is keeping his show going until we officially leave for the Big 12. And who knows what he's going to do after that. He's free to do whatever he wants. And anyway, yeah, so keep us in your podcast feed. You never know when we may show up back in it again. So, all right. With that being said, one more commercial here and then news and notes.
I'm Jeff Allen. Join me each and every week on the Knightline Sports Network for the AAC Report. We bring you in-depth coverage of each school in football, basketball, baseball, softball, soccer, golf, tennis, and more, as well as bring you insider interviews and focus in on the biggest games and news of the week. That's all right here each week on the AAC Report, only on the Knightline Sports Network.
And now, news and notes from the world of UCF sports. All right, UCF women's tennis team began their 2023 spring campaign with a win over Stetson this last week, 4-3. They have gone to the NCAA tournament for 4 straight years and have hosted for 2 of those years. Good luck, ladies.
The UCF women's basketball team fell to the Cal Sunday, 83-51. This year's team's been decimated by injuries. They are 10-8 and will play next at Temple on Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern. The game will be available on ESPN Plus. With the loss, UCF still leads this year's War on I-4, 24-9. Good luck, ladies.
Big shout out to UCF women's soccer star Kristen Scott, who was drafted by the Orlando Pride. She was electric on the pitch, and I'll just add that the video of her getting drafted is actually awesome. So you guys got to watch that.
Yeah.
Let's hope the Pride yell "Hooday" as much as the Bengals will against the Chiefs as she joins the team for the 2023 season.
All right. And on that note, UCF women's softball hosted their annual meet and greet on Saturday. It included autographs, batting practice with the team for season ticket holders, and a chance to run the bases. This year's team is poised for another deep run, but will be relying on their hitting with the 2 aces from last year's team moving on. I can't wait for them to get started. Get out and support this team. They 100% deserve it.
All righty, and congratulations to Taylor Hendricks, who we talked about just a little while ago, tied the AAC record by being named the AAC Rookie of the Week for the 6th time this season. He is absolutely special, and hopefully he, plays for us for another year. I'm just kind of worried about that kind of thing. So
listen, if he doesn't go to the NBA, he will play here. He won't go anywhere else because of his brother.
Yeah, that's good news.
Yeah, that's cool.
And they were recruited since they were in 9th grade and always wanted to come to UCF, according to his mom.
Yeah, I think that he probably I would, if I was him, I would want to have that year at least in the Big 12 because that's going to be
big time basketball.
Yeah.
All right, this has been Knightline 287. I'm Andrew Phegley.
And I'm Roger Phipps.
I'm Trey Neal.
And I'm Ben Stout. Go Knights!
Charge on.
Charge on.
UCF, let's go Knights! UCF, charge on to the field. With our spirits, we'll never yield. Black and gold charge right through the line. Victory is our cry. BSETO, tonight our Knights will shine. UCF, Knights! UCF, let's